What is up? It is your boy Johnny Mags back at you with another edition of our All Angels podcast. Joined as always with
Daniel Garcia.
And the season is over, so this is our year in review show. We talked about it last week. We're gonna get into our picks for MVPs, rookies, defender, all that good stuff. So we'll get into that. But before we really get into anything, we just want to quickly send our thoughts, prayers, and positive vibes to the people in Las Vegas for the tragedies that happened over the weekend. Obviously we won't talk too much about it because everybody knows what's happening. So really just our prayers are with you all, the community of Las Vegas. Anyone who listens to us in Las Vegas, we're with you guys. We can only imagine what you guys are going through. So our thoughts, our prayers, and positive vibes your guys' way. Let's see. Follow us on or send us all your emails or your questions to the allangelspodcast@gmail.com. That's allangelspodcast@gmail.com. We got a few emails this week regarding end of the year stuff, so that kind of helps. Where can they follow us on Facebook and social media there, Dan?
Yeah, at both Instagram and on Twitter is going to be Halo_Haven. That's on both Instagram and Twitter. So check us out. Add us. Slow time, so pick it back up again once we hit spring training and everything. But yeah, so if you're ever on Twitter or Instagram, Halo_Haven.
Cool. So, obviously the season's over. The Angels, were they mathematically eliminated?
Last time we talked Thursday, they were, because I think they were mathematically eliminated on that Monday or Sunday or something like that.
Okay, so obviously there's a lot of I think now people are starting to kind of question what are we going to do next. I know there's a little bit of news regarding, whether or not Justin Upton was going to re-sign or not. What are we going to do at third base? What are we going to do? Are we going to pick up second baseman? So that was one of the poll question, obviously, was what we're going to do there. But I don't know what you want to touch on first. You want to get into...
Yeah, we can go to the poll question first.
Yeah, let's do that.
Just because it's going to touch a little bit of everything we talk about today. So for people that are just listening for the first time or unaware, but during the season I try to post a question on Instagram or on Facebook and on Twitter, and this week's was simple. As a fan, where do you think the Angels need to, their first priority in the offseason, signing a free agent? And it was a starting pitcher, third baseman, first baseman, or second baseman. So I was kind of surprised because when I first put the poll out there, I wasn't too sure where I was going to vote personally. But the public came back and it was 69% starting pitching, 20% third baseman, and then first and second base were just about the same at 5 and 6%. But I was surprised that it was that big of starting pitching. I personally picked third base. I'm not sure where you voted on that.
I voted on the pitching, and I wrote a comment on the Facebook side on Halo Haven. I didn't want to be completely obvious or go with what the obvious answers probably would be, but I was gonna go with pitching because I know that if we get all our guys healthy, we should have a decent rotation. But I just feel like you can never have too much good pitching.
Right.
And the problem this year was we got hurt a lot, and we had to rely on a lot of up and comers, young guys stepping into spots in the rotation that they weren't used to. I feel that if we can pick up at least a solid 2 or 3 guy, it'll definitely solidify, Richard Skaggs, a really good guy, and then it gives you options at the tail end of the rotation.
Right.
And it even gives you options to the bullpen because maybe you can make one of the guys who doesn't make the cut a long reliever or whatever. He's in, or you start him at AAA, someone gets injured, he fills the spot right up. So I went with starting pitching just because of that. And I know that the free agent market for pitchers, it's not as deep as we would like. There's guys like Arrieta, Wade Davis, guys like that. I'd say middle of the tier guy would be awesome, like a number 2 or number 3 starter. An ace. If you want an ace and you want a guy like Arrieta, you're gonna spend a lot of money.
Or like a Yu Darvish, yeah.
Right, or Yu Darvish. You're gonna spend decent money, and I don't know if the Angels are really wanting to do that. They have options with what they want to do with their money. I went towards the pitching side.
Yeah, I went towards the third base side, and I kind of was torn going between first base or starting pitching and third base, just because, kind of like how you were saying with the pitching, they're not healthy. They haven't been healthy, but it's such a weird that you don't have a true test to what your pitching staff is because, like we said, they're not healthy. So for all you know, these guys could work out and be something, and you don't want to sink a bunch of money in a free agent. Like you said, the free agent pool for starting pitching isn't great. I mean, like you said, you have a Yu Darvish, an Arrieta, Cueto, and Tanaka both have options, so they can opt in, opt out. But that's about it. I mean, there's some okay people Arrieta's hurt. Yu Darvish is, has had elbow injuries in the past, so it's just interesting to see what the pitching market's going to be. But we have some sound from Epler on a podcast, the ESPN Baseball Tonight podcast, talking about what they see for the offseason for the pitching staff.
Cool. We'll play that now.
From Shu and JC, who are both, guys that are going to end the year on the disabled list, but they are, or at least in Shu's case, is actually actively throwing right now, and JC will be behind him. So we'll get a little bit of an indication of what we can expect, heading into spring training, just from a standpoint of, who's going to be able. If there's going to be guys, within that group that are unable. We will have Nick Topiano coming back. Unfortunately, we will have lost Alex Meyer. What feels like it's going to be all of 18, or at least a very significant portion of that. But we'll have some guys come back. We'll some good news as we get a little deeper into fall and can really assess the situations with JC and Shu and the indications right now are positive, but I mean that it's going to be a death game for us, and I don't think there's any way around that. It's just we're going to have to show up in spring with 8 to 9 guys that we feel comfortable with taking a turn, and we'll probably have to grab a couple along the way, whether that's via minor league free agency or a guy developing internally, such as one of our top prospects is a young kid named Jaime Barria, who's really made a name for himself and really moved through the organization. At a pretty rapid pace this season. And then we'll rely on some of the guys to come back healthy, such as Nick Troviano. So it's going to have to be a situation where we're comfortable with 7 or 8, at least in spring training, and then looking for 2, 3, 4 more to emerge. And that's just our reality. We can't be blind to that.
So there it is. I mean, he hit on a lot of good little topics there, or little points. I mean, he said you got to be realistic, right?
Right. So, with that being said, where the pitching staff is with injury-wise, on the vote, I picked third base just because offensively, I think the Angels need to pick, try and get some kind of pop. Third base production this year wasn't great. They were 11th in hits in the AL, 10th in home run in the AL, 14th in the AL with RBIs, and then they had the 14th batting average in the AL. So you're talking about all your major offensive categories for third baseman, the lower half of the AL. So if you can, and I know everyone thinks that Hosmer, and Hosmer wouldn't be a bad pickup for that, and you would have an everyday player there. Then you can go with the Valbuena Cron split at first base, so you can kind of get more depth there for that position. But yeah, when I looked at the numbers and tried to break it down by position, not necessarily by person, but by position, the Angels' third base production was really, really light, or was really, really low in the season. So that's why I voted for a third baseman.
Cool. I mean, third base. I was surprised with the home run numbers. But then I realized Luis had 23, but he played first base.
Yeah, so when he hits them when he's on first base that day, the stats go to first base.
And Escobar was hardly there.
Right. And so, in the flip side, if you go to the first base production for the Angels, they're 14th, and these are all AL. 14th in hits, 8th in home runs, so there's what you were talking about. Yeah. 8th in RBIs, and then 14th in average, so the average is low. But the main power numbers, RBI and home runs, are in the top half. So,
Yeah.
you know, if you get Valbuena there as a split with Crone, I think that those numbers probably maybe go up a little bit more.
Right.
I'm not sure about the average. Maybe you would like them to work on average a little bit better,
Right.
but I think the power numbers with the, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility if you get both those guys playing first base and you can combine for an easy 30 home run, 100 RBI season with those two splitting. I think that's possible. So,
Right.
you know, I think third baseman is probably the best chance you get again, the instant pop in the bat. Second base, free agency is not good at all this year. So
Right.
that one, you'd be kind of just blowing money
Well,
away.
I'll quickly touch on something that was discussed on the Halo Haven page on Facebook. Someone said, what if the Angels pick up a guy like Moustakas at third base, right?
Yeah.
And which is something you obviously would
Right.
like. A guy like Moustakas at third base, what are they going to do at second base? I say Luis Valbuena has played 209 games in his career at second base, came up as a middle infielder. You have options at second base if you don't sign a good everyday second baseman. The guy Luis Valbuena played 209 games there. I think he's played about 509 games at third base, about 100 and something games at first. So second base is his second natural position.
Right.
So you have options at second base. So it's like, you know, if you don't go out and spend money on a second baseman that you're kind of settling for.
Right.
You don't want to do that. If you get a guy like Moustakas, then you have options at second. You have options at first. You even have options at different positions.
And even to Cliff Pennington, the utility infielder that the Angels have, is now a free agent. Now, do you want to use Valbuena in that role where he's giving, you know, second base a day off here? He's a righty's up, so now he's at first base. Moustakas needs now a day off. You could put him at third. So now does he slip into that role where now he could be the utility almost every position on the infield, to where if there's an injury, you have at least a decent backup in whatever position it is. You don't lose a lot if someone needs a day off. So it'll be interesting to see how they're going to work that way. And again, you can sign a middle grade middle infielder, you know, to compete for a second base job with, I'm guessing, with Cowart, because he did come up and, you know, for his first, you know, fairly full season where he had over 100 at bats. You know, it wasn't great, it wasn't terrible. You know, he batted .225, 3 home runs, 11 RBIs, but you know, you kind of do want to see him develop and see where he's going to be. So
yeah, he could even be your utility guy.
right, exactly. He plays third, he plays second. You know, I'm sure in a pinch you could probably put him at shortstop if something crazy happens. You can take reps there as, you know, for practice as the year goes on. So yeah, I think there's a lot of players where the Angels have right now where they can kind of move around if they don't land a big kind of middle infielder at second base. So that's not to me a big concern. First basemen, again, there's not a whole lot of.
Yeah, I mean,
you got Eric Hosmer. Again, he's 28, so he's probably one of the younger options free agency wise.
he's big money.
He's gonna require big money too, and then you come into the situation where now you have three first basemen if you count Pujols. Well, even though he's gonna be your DH.
Yeah.
That's kind of regardless of what he's gonna do with the DH. So now you have 2 first basemen. I don't know if the Angels would want to carry 2 strictly first basemen. Like, you like a guy like Valbuena where when he's not playing first, he can play third.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think Cronin's ever played a position other than DH/first base. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's kind of how they feel about Cronin. If they can trade him for, maybe you could trade him for
For a second baseman.
for a second baseman, or for a up and coming, you know, middle starting pitching in the minor leagues. You know, maybe somebody you can develop. You can do it that way, and then you can go after a Hosmer or something like that. But with the roster they have now, I don't think Hosmer would be a big target. I think mostly they would be going over towards, I think, resigning Upton, because there's a rumor saying he might opt out, and then going after Moustakas.
The Upton thing is something that, you know, we were talking about it briefly off before the show started about how, like, you know, what it's going to require, what the Angels are going to have to do to get him. Obviously, if he opts out, he's going to want more than $22 million a year, because that's what he's getting right now.
Right.
So this, you know,
if he opts in, he has $22.1 million for the next 4 years.
which is really a really good contract.
I personally think if he does opt out, he might be looking for a 5th and 6th year contract. just because he'll be at the end of this recent contract he'll be 33. So if he's looking to play to his 35th, 36th season, that might be where his goal is, to get one last big payday.
Right.
Because if he hits a market in 33, he's probably not going to get more than a 1 or 2 year deal. So he's probably instead of trying to get those 1 or 2 years now guaranteed, and go from there. But I just, the 22 million, I don't see him getting a ton more than that. He's never got more than that in a season. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I think that should be the Angels' priority number one if he does opt out of the current contract he has right now.
Yeah. Upton obviously is our key free agent. I think the market for outfielders, it's not very good.
It's not. I mean, you have some guys that are going to be, I think, are going to get big money because of their name, like a McCutchen, like a JD Martinez, which the last month of the year in Arizona has killed it, and he's still rolling now in the playoffs. So I mean, other than that, you have Batista, which did nothing pretty much this year for Toronto, and they let him walk. Jay Bruce, he's 31. He's declining offensively. Like a lot of these older players you're seeing on the outfield level are going to be like DHs or DH types in maybe 1 or 2 years. And again, with the Pujols kind of sitting there, being your everyday DH because of the money he's spending on them, I don't see how they would fit in. So unless you go back to the, we were kind of joking about it, but if you go back and try to sign Maven again, because he's a free agent after he signed a 1 year deal, or Revere again after this year, you might lose some pop, but at least you gain some speed and some base path movement that I don't think you have really with an Upton.
Right. And one of the questions that was sent to us was from Rob Lastings on All Angels Podcast, or is it All Angels Podcast at gmail.com. He asked, and we're talking about it now, so that's why I'm reading it. Upton may be opting out, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's not re-signing. Should the Angels make a move at re-signing him? Yeah.
Yeah, I think they should. I mean, again, everything within a certain bubble. I'm not going to sit here and say throw all the whole bank at him.
No.
If you're going to give him that 5th, 6th year as the Angels, I would like to see maybe a smaller per year.
Tail end.
Yeah, per year. Or
the big money up front.
Front loaded. Maybe he gets $30 million the first 2 or 3 years, and then he's making maybe 15 or 10 in the back.
Yeah, we don't want.
Which
Albert deal.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where they messed up with Albert. It's like, oh, we'll pay you this much, but we're going to backload it. And as a player, you're thinking, great, But again, and this goes with any free agent. Same thing with Moustakas. I would love the Angels sign Moustakas, but again, you kind of have to realize in sports and with money, free agencies are tricky. Like, I don't know. Me and Chris were talking about this earlier before you got here. Name the last great, and you can even broaden it out more towards this MLB in general, but the last great big time free agent signing any team's had. Like, yeah, you might get one there, one here, but for every one guy that did great on free agent signing, like a Cano or stuff like that.
That one's even suspect.
Yeah, so for every one of those, you'll have a Gary Matthews. This is just going Gary Matthews Jr., Mo Vaughn, Vernon Wells, Josh Hamilton. So, granted, the Angels did well with Vlad and with Torrey. But other than that, you have way more examples of it not working out. So you have to be smart. I know fans are probably going to be pissed if why did we didn't sign anybody, even though maybe their demands are so huge. So I like to keep everything within.
Yeah.
Within means. I don't think you back up the truck.
And you got to remember, guys, we're not a horrible team, so you don't necessarily have to make a large splash. The 0-2 team didn't make a splash at all. The biggest signing that year was Aaron Seeley, and that guy didn't even finish in the rotation that season. So,
or even if you look at now, Boston with David Price, they spend a grip load of money for him, and now he's coming out of the bullpen in the playoffs. Where when you signed that, you were hoping for him to be the number 1 or number 2 starter in your playoff run, and now he's a lefty specialist coming out of the pen. So I'm always wary about the free agent market, and maybe as an Angel fan, I feel like I got burned by it so many times that if you were to ask me who do you want, I'm like, go after the middle guys where you don't spend a bunch, and maybe they give you decent years, good years, and you can fill the rest of the holes with a Mike Trout because he's going to be productive. Mike Trout's going to be productive
Yeah, he's
no
gonna
matter
try
what.
to be Mike Trout.
And then you look at the rest of the year, like pitching wise, pitching wasn't terrible. I mean, people want to say that, and I think it was more recency bias. Like as far as maybe the last month and a half wasn't great, but if you look at the numbers overall, sixth best ERA,
That's pretty good. That's
seventh
good.
best strikeout,
It's not bad.
sixth best batting average against.
That's
So-
middle of the road right there.
Right, and that's with a lot of your guys not being healthy.
Yeah.
So for them to turn around and sink a lot of money into a Yu Darvish, a Arrieta, those guys, I just don't see the return. I don't think the return, and again, it's always about return. It's how much you can get for what you're putting in. I don't think it's going to make, Clay Buchholz. Like, I don't know where you would look, so.
I mean, go ahead and grab those guys for decent money. Not, like you said, don't back up the truck for these guys.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, in return, like what do you expect these guys to do? And nothing's written in stone. Like unless you're picking up Clayton Kershaw,
Right.
or like you're picking up a guy like Mike Trout, and you know what you're getting. Otherwise, man, it's not. It's you. You have to be smart about it. So, Curator, what is your Angels offseason move? What do you want them to get? Pitchers, third base, second base. Where do you think we need to improve on, free agent wise?
Obviously, second base, third base, pitcher too. As far as the free agents out there, there's nobody that's just like that appealing. I like the Luis Valbuena to second move and then sign a big time third baseman. I'm liking that. I think that's the position we haven't really filled since Troy Gloss left.
Ooh.
I feel like it's just been one of those positions. I don't know if Caleb Cowart's your answer right now. I love Caleb Cowart, but I don't know if he's full-time second baseman. But as far as free agency, I don't know. I'm not feeling it.
I gotcha. Yeah, there's not one name that sticks out at you, and the one name that does is Jake Arrieta, and
he's injured right now.
Yeah, and I
too.
feel like that's a real gamble because there's no doubt he's going to ask for big money.
Right.
And
I
don't want them to do that. Get more for what you're going to spend on one.
I'd rather sign
Moustakas.
I'd rather sign Moustakas and sign a JC Ramirez that is cheap. He can at the top he can be a number 2, number 3, or a 3, 4 starter. And at the worst, he's a bullpen guy. I'd rather sign a couple of those guys, try him out. And this last year, they showed that they can sign guys that people may have passed on or are willing to give away super cheap and turn them into something. I mean, even the bullpen, people were saying they need a reliever, they need a closer. Maybe a closer, maybe one of these guys matures into a closer. But bullpen-wise, they have the top wins in the AL, 5th best in ERA, and 5th most innings. So, the bullpen's not that bad. So I think bullpen is pretty. Maybe you get 1 or 2 arms. I know a lefty would be great in there, lefty arm. But again, you have to kind of look at what's available. There's not a whole lot of lefty bullpen relievers. No one that's really going to be like I think the average fan would get. Like I don't think you can throw out a name like a Jake McGee or Mike Minor or whatever. I don't know if anyone knows who those people are. So they pick one up. He's that lefty specialist. That'd be great. I don't think any of those guys are really going to be requesting any more than maybe $7 million, $6 million a year.
Right. So the options for the Angels. I mean, they got to be smart about it. I mean, I'll repeat that a million times because you just don't want to spend your money and then you're scratching your head going, why did we spend the money on this? So quickly just looking, and I want to touch on something that we got to look at bright spots. I mean, obviously the Angels, for me, they overachieved this season. They played better than I thought, considering all the injuries that we've had. We talked about it before. A sort of a bright spot for me, guys, and I know it sounds weird, but when you look at the numbers at the end of the year, Albert Pujols finished with 100 RBIs again, which is like kind of
weird.
Yeah, because I feel like he comes up in situations where we need him to do something, and it feels like he doesn't come through. But then you're like, wait a minute, he had 4 RBIs tonight.
Yeah, I think that goes back to kind of what we were saying with free agency is like depending on how much you pay a guy. Listen, if you're paying Albert half of what you're paying him now, and you got this production, you'd be happy with it because you're kind of paying.
That's what I was gonna touch on. Yeah.
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 But if you're sitting here paying him, what was this year was 26 million, then yeah, you expect more. But
Yeah.
if you're sitting there, giving him 14 million, then
You'll take what he's doing.
exactly your
Twice on a
judgment.
Sunday, yeah.
Exactly, your judgment changes. So, again, that's why free agencies. I feel like Angels have been burned too many times to just start backing up the truck on it.
Yeah, definitely. So you had a soundbite by Billy Epler.
Epler, yeah. This is again from the ESPN Baseball Tonight podcast with Buster Olney, and he had Epler on there. With the first time you heard from him earlier, that was him talking on, and this is the same podcast. It's a little bit later on, and they're talking about Pujols and what they expect from him in the off season, and what they can expect from him, going into next year.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to play this. I think we're still recording. Something happened to the computer here. It like went blank on me. But we're still live on YouTube. Dude, I don't know what happened here. Went blank on us. It says record on there. I don't know what's going on here. Technical difficulties. Bear with us if you can hear us.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't know if I refresh it, if it's gonna restart at all.
See what it does. See if it stay on page, leave page.
I don't know. What if we do this? I'll see if that kicks out.
You know what though? It probably did save. Hold on. Watch. And we'll just have to pick up where we left off. So go to it's gonna take a second though to show on there. Nope. We're gonna have to start over. Ah, dude. We're gonna have to start over.
The whole podcast?
Yeah. It just went blank on us.
What?
Yeah, like it went to like a blank screen. Like I didn't even touch anything. I just moved the arrow, and I looked down, and I was like, "What happened?" Alright. Well, that freaking sucks. Hold on. Let me double check though, because if the last time something like that happened to me, it recorded that half, and it was saved to like to the podcast where the shows are, and no, it's not on there because it would be right up here. Well, that blows. Yep.